Hello and welcome to another live stream. This one is about the latest tech trends. Bruno is just on his way, so he will hopefully be joining us very soon. As always, I would like to make this as interactive as possible. So please let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know any questions you have or any exciting things and topics that you think we should be talking about when it comes to the month in tech, in artificial intelligence, in data science. Um, since Bruno and I haven't done this now for a few months because we had took a little break over the summer, so there's so much to talk about. And as I said, hopefully you will join in this conversation and share with us what you think we should be talking about. If you have any questions, this is your opportunity to ask it. And while you hopefully start joining us, we will. I'm just waiting for Bruno. So for me, some of the things that I would like to talk about and that I've started writing about this month is this idea of the metaverse. For me, this is something that both Facebook and Microsoft are now starting to talk about quite a lot. And this metaverse is basically the idea of creating a digital universe. And I don't know whether any of you have seen Ready Player One. For me, this is the best film, a movie, to give us a really good idea of what this metaverse might look like, because there you have this guy that is trying to escape into the oasis, which is this digital world where you can be anyone you want to be using your avatar, and then you can do car racing, you can go to the casino, you can hang out with friends, you can see a movie, and so many other things. There is Bruno. Hey,
Good morning or good afternoon.
good morning, good afternoon. Um, thank you for joining.
Well, thanks for having me. I was having some issues trying to get to this, but now it's working. So
Very
I'm
good,
excited
very
to talk
good.
to you again. We haven't talked in quite a while. You've been away for the holidays, so it's great to see your face as well.
Yeah, no, likewise, likewise. And I was just starting to talk to people about the metaverse, something I've been talking and writing about, this whole idea that Microsoft and Facebook are very seriously talking about the creation of these digital universes. And I guess Mark Zuckerberg's vision is to, and he was saying that this idea of this metaverse even preceded his idea of social networking. You
Are
will
you
go,
referring to this?
yes,
I
you're
saw you
just
got you
putting
got
your,
these glasses too.
yes, no, I this is something you can't talk, not we can't not talk about the Ray-Ban
Exactly. Wait a
smart
second. Let
glasses
me take a photo
with
of this session.
sorry.
Let me take a photo or video of this session.
Yeah,
These
we
glasses are really quite amazing. Um, I've been using them, of course, and I saw that you had them as well. And every person I've showed this to really is kind of amazed about it. Just the device itself, for people that don't know, these are Ray-Ban glasses Facebook created. There's a little set of cameras here. They enable you to take photos, take videos. You can also use the branches to listen to music. You can also control the volume by just swiping your finger here. But I think what's interesting for people like you and I is, while the gadget itself is interesting, it's also kind of signaling where we're going. I think from an interface standpoint, with information in general. This is
yeah.
probably the first generation, but certainly in our field, in the data AI analytics field, is that how we're going to interact with data moving forward? And certainly this gives us a great sign for where we're going.
Yeah, and for me, this is a very first step of bringing together the virtual and the real world. And I have to say, I was quite disappointed when the feature list came first out, because it's, even though it's great that you can listen to music, you can take photographs and videos, and I guess what Facebook and Ray-Ban are trying to do is they're trying to see how, what's the user adoption of all of this, how do people react to this. I was hoping that there would be some augmented reality to those glasses, so this projection of images onto the lens, and hopefully this will come with the next iterations. But it's very interesting to see. And I've been wearing them to my son's soccer games, for example, and it's a great way of recording. So when he's just about to score a goal, I can just press the button and record it. It's much better and faster than your phone. But on the other side, there's a bit of this creepy feature where people feel that they're being spied on, even though a little tiny light comes on indicating that you're recording. It is not really that visible. So it will be very interesting to see how people react to this. And
Yeah.
for me, as the first evolution of this, Ray-Ban and Facebook probably got this right, just to float the idea. But hopefully we'll see versions 2, 3, and 4 very soon that are actually bringing us some of the
Yeah.
augmented reality capabilities.
I've had the same experience. So one is, I think, the super cool feature of it that I didn't talk about is you can actually call the function, right? So you can basically say, "Okay, Facebook," or "Hey, Facebook, take a photo." So it'll
Yeah.
actually work on that, and you'll see the light turn on when you take the photo. But I think, like you said, it's very subtle, so it's difficult for people to tell that photo's been taken, or video's been taken. Um, the length of the maximum video, I think, is about 30 seconds or so. So you can't take full blown videos, but you can take about 30 minutes. Where it was useful for me recently, I had to drive. I had to do this very long drive from San Francisco to Seattle, and I did it in one day. And when I arrived in Seattle, I wanted to be able to kind of capture that moment. So I was driving into Seattle, and I say, "Hey, Facebook, take a video," and it taped the whole experience driving into Seattle, which I thought was pretty cool.
No, I agree. And I now see myself quite often when I don't have the glasses with me. I think, oh, it would have been so nice to just capture it now. And it feels very
Yeah,
intuitive. And
yeah,
but for me, this is obviously Facebook with they obviously own Oculus as well. They want to bring this whole augmented and virtual reality space to life. And I think Facebook's vision is to create something that is almost like Ready Player One, the oasis, the space where you can be anything you want to be, where you meet people virtually. And we are seeing this slowly happening. Even if you think about virtual concerts, for example, they are now a thing. And my kids play Fortnite, and Fortnite has featured Marshmello and Ariana Grande, and they've had 20 million kids from around the world watching her live and him live. And that's for me is the beginning of this virtual world that we're creating. What we haven't got yet is where you have this seamless experience from going to a game, to playing a game, to watching a movie, to interacting, to working. And this is where I think Microsoft is talking about the enterprise metaverse that they want to create. And again, creating these virtual spaces where we can actually be proactive and share things, which is quite exciting.
yeah. I think most people that I talk to about these glasses, or I show it to them, they'll instantly expect more from the glass. They expect
Hmm.
there'll be a reflection on the glass. They'll expect this will be full blown immersive experience. I don't think we're there yet with these glasses. I think what's hard as well as the format, right? So you want to be able to enable that, but you don't want to have these gigantic glasses or this gigantic mask over your head. That would be kind of weird to try and interface with. So I think we're in the middle of that, but I'm pretty sure just interacting with this one that we're getting closer every year to having this immersive experience in a device that really is going to be now almost difficult to tell from a regular Ray-Ban. I mean, from the other Ray-Bans that I've seen, this is pretty much comparable size. So we're
and
getting
and
there. It's just a matter of time, I think.
and then this is what I found wearing them. I no one ever looks at you thinking, "What are you wearing?" It just
Yeah.
looks like a normal pair of sunglasses, whereas the Google Glass in the past was very different,
Or even
and
the Microsoft HoloLens, right? It is
yeah,
clearly an enterprise scenario that you won't be wearing around the streets of your
no,
city. But the point is the technology is getting there, and clearly for me, it's indicating that clearly the future is going to be here. I mean, these devices to our grandkids will look like really an atrocity, even though in our lifetime this has been a game changing relationship with the internet and technology in general. I think we're now quickly evolving to something that just you're just going to wear it.
absolutely. The phones as we know them today will be interesting museum pieces in the future.
Absolutely. What else has
Um,
been going on with you while you were gone? Did you read a bunch of books? Do you have book
yes, no,
suggestions?
I read a lot of stuff, lots of interesting books that I can also recommend. I read Framers, Human Advantage in the Age of Technology and Turmoil by Kevin Cukier, Victor Meyer Schoenberger, and Francis de Vericourt. Ah, yes, you've read it as well.
This
And
book,
I'm,
yeah, this is a great
yes,
book.
so I know Victor Meyer Schoenberger very well. He teaches at Oxford. I meet him regularly, and I actually have a session planned with him to talk about the book. So that should be coming up soon. So anyone who wants to see this, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know Ken Cukier, so I'm happy to introduce you to him as well.
Yes,
Ken used to be the data editor at The Economist. I think he still, I mean, he still works for The Economist, and that's
he
how I met
does.
him when he wrote this big piece, front page piece on The Economist called the Data Deluge. I think that was probably 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
where people are starting to getting familiar with the opportunity of big data. That's how I met him. And since then, I've been in touch with him, and he sent me this book, which I agree with you is a great book. What
Yeah.
else
So
did you read?
yeah, so just to summarize some of the thinking in that book, what I like about this is that it paints a very positive picture of people. It basically says we still need humans. Sometimes we paint this picture that artificial intelligence and technology can take over, but the point they are making is that it is humans that create these frames of thoughts or these models that everything is built on, and we regularly update those models. So when we realized the world wasn't flat and was round, there was a big paradigm shift. And if we build AI models on the fact that the world is flat, they wouldn't work anymore. So we need people to update those. And in the same way, one of the examples they give in the book is AIs that can create music, and there are lots of AIs that make beautiful music, but they're basically based on composers, on certain artists and their library, their music. So the foundation of this is actually human created, which is interesting. So is and basically what they're arguing for is that we need people to create those frames of thinking, and that will bring us forward, which is quite good.
It just hit me that it's a great transition from those frames to the book, the framers. I agree with you. I wrote a quick summary of the book when it came out, and to me, it's one of the most positive books around the relationship between humans and machines, because everything that you read about artificial intelligence is fairly negative today, right? So this,
Mm.
I think, provides a better context for how to think about the future of humans and machine, how to make decisions, how decisions are built, and how we can aspire to a better future with a better relationship with technology itself. And so I think they've done a really good job, well researched, great set of stories. So definitely one of the most entertaining technology books I think this summer for sure.
And talking about the relationship between machines and humans, the other book I read is called The New Breed, by MIT researcher Kate Darling. And this explores the relationship between humans and machines. And again, same scenario. Machines are sometimes portrayed as people versus machines. And she creates a really nice analogy that actually we should look at machines a bit like we look at animals. that we use them to help us do things better. We have domesticated dogs that help us, and they, if we can't see, that we have guide dogs that help us still navigate the world. And for me, this is a really good analogy as well, and a nice entertaining book as well to read.
Now, I want to come back to this because there's a few great one-liners in the book that I think people need to think about. This one is about framing the universe and framing ourselves. And we do not see things as they are; we see things as we are. And so it's the idea of, um, how you see reality is highly biased and influenced by who you are, and being able to be aware of that as a human being is an important, I think, consideration, particularly for how we make decisions. Often people think, oh well, once we have all the data and the data is well understood and well communicated, and there's great data storytelling capabilities that enable us to kind of make our point emotionally and logically, people will make the decisions. Well, what we have to remember is that we are emotional machines that make decisions. We're not
Mm.
logical machines that make decisions. And so, taking into account, how you frame an argument, and how to think about making decisions as humans, is an important context, particularly as you're trying to build a data-driven organization. Other books that I've read in this topic this summer have been about that, which is how do you kind of crack the code for making data decision making. Another one that I would highly advise is this one. I don't know if you had the opportunity to read it. Fail Fast, Learn Faster, by Randy Bean. And what I like about it the most is probably on page 197 here, where he talks about the 10 commandments of data driven business transformation. Now, the context is Randy is the CEO of a firm called New Vantage Partners. And so, what they do is they spend their time with chief data officers, and they survey them every year. They publish this CDO survey, and they ask them, what's going to enable an organization to go through this transformation. And turns out, technology is a small percentage of the issue. A lot of it is, working with people, working on the soft stuff, if you will, right? We always say the soft stuff is the hard stuff. But here, what's interesting is that he basically breaks up in 10 rules how to build a data-driven organization. And every rule is backed up by a customer example or one of his, panelists or participants in his survey. The most interesting rule is this idea of centralizing data and decentralizing analytics. And I don't know if you have an opinion on that, what you see with customers. But what I certainly see just talking to chief data officers and so forth is the science of solving data issues in an organization is really now about enabling the centralization of data so it's governed, so you can run machine learning at a very large scale, but decentralizing analytics so you can give the power back to the business users who can take that data, transform it, maybe augment it in a way that's relevant to their business and drive business outcomes for their department, their group, their organization ultimately. What's your take on this, Bernard? I know you do a lot of work with large organizations, and so I'm curious what you can share with the community.
No, I think it's hugely important, and I haven't read the book yet, so it will be very interesting to see. It's on my reading list. For me, whenever we talk about data, we have to approach it strategically, and we need to look at. For me, actually, this brings me to something else. I need to talk about the second edition of my data strategy book, which I've basically just received yesterday, and it will come out officially on Sunday here in the UK, and later on in the month in the US. And what and this is a completely rewritten version of my book that I published in 2017, because so much has changed. But so I've updated it with lots of use cases around AI and machine learning, because so much has happened there. I've added new chapters, but the premise is still the same, that we need to really start with our strategy. We need to identify our strategic priorities of our businesses, and then I look at the different segments or the different lenses you can put on. So the first lens is data will help you make better informed decisions. So you can really identify some of the key decisions and questions you want to have an answer to as an organization, and then you need to find the data to help you answer them. The second one is it helps you to better understand your customers and your market. The third one is that it helps you then to reimagine your products and services, because you can use data and AI to make them smarter, more personalized. The fourth lens then is to look at your own business operations, and you can use data and AI and other things to automate and improve your operations and find the perfect balance between humans and machines. And the fifth one is to monetize your data, where you can actually treat data as an asset that you can sell and rent to others. And then I provide a framework. Okay, now you've used this framework to identify the key use cases. How do you then go about identifying your data strategy? And for me, you then have to think about, okay, where's the data coming from? Is this internal data, external data, structured, unstructured data? And for me, lots of organizations still have blinkers on, where they don't really realize how much data is out there that they can access and bring into their own data set to enrich it, to generate insights that their own data could never give them. Then we need to think about the technology. How do we then turn this data into insights? How do we store it, process it, analyze it, and so on? Then a hugely important chapter in the book is around get data governance and ethics. Every data strategy needs to consider this, and then of course things like how do you close the data skills gap that we're seeing? How do you partner with the right organizations to make sure you can actually move these things forward? So it's a really up-to-date look at data science today, which I think will be useful for people.
This concept of external data, I run into this with customers all the time, and kind of draw this small thing. I don't know if I've ever showed it to you, but you know what this is here? This is your company's data,
Yeah.
and this is the world's data. And I think we're now at a level of maturity where organizations can start considering, how do I bring external data easily into my own ecosystem? But certainly, it requires a maturity to go through at least three stages, is what I've noticed for organizations. The first one is I call the data ocean. It's this idea that first I had to think about, okay, how do I manage my data holistically across multiple formats, across multiple locations, on-prem, in the cloud, multiple clouds, and requirements. So it's kind of like this idea of building an ocean where we've moved past the idea of the lake, right? So everyone's talking about the data lake. Well, the problem is the data lake is kind of enclosed and there's no outside to it. And so the idea of the data ocean is that it's really kind of infinite and it connects everything. That's kind of the idea. And the requirements there around really cost and efficiencies. The second stage is around what we call the data fabric. And it's a term now that people are starting to use, data fabric, data mesh, because here we're talking about this idea of having access to the data, but governing it in a way that you can now distribute maybe data environments or data labs or data neighborhoods. I think this company, Fidelity, the data leader at Fidelity, calls this data neighborhoods, where he's going to now take specific best practice centrally managed and then make them available to various departments. And then the third stage, the most advanced one, where now the gate between the data neighborhoods or the data fabric and this third stage is around the ability to identify use cases, build intelligent application frameworks, is what we call the data ecosystem. And that's where you can now start bringing external data sets and now augment the information your organization has brought together. And as you can see, the opportunity is more than 10 times the ability to get better insights for your employees. The issue is getting on a roadmap for that, right? So, how can you accelerate the maturation of an organization to work through these stages?
No, I completely agree. And I talked about the importance of ethics and data governance and data privacy, which brings me to another book that I read this month, which is called Industry Unbound: The Inside Story of Privacy, Data, and Corporate Power. which is by Professor Ari Waldman of Northeastern University. And I spent an hour speaking to Ari yesterday about the book. And so this is another thing that is in the pipeline. You will see this on my channel soon. But it is fascinating. He's a lawyer looking at the privacy laws and the lack of privacy laws, basically, and how companies aiming to maximize profits are basically exploiting privacy. And one of the interesting things he was saying is that by having all of these laws, by GDPR and the Californian data regulation, all of these things, what this basically means is companies can employ data privacy professionals, which then work very hard to put processes in place to make sure data is safe and people are able to delete their data and they have access to it. But it doesn't actually touch some of the fundamental problems that lots of people still don't know what happens to their data, how companies are collecting it. And this for me has always been a real concern. I've always said, as businesses, we need to be transparent. And at the moment, it feels like that is still not happening, that lots of organizations are trying to hide behind really convoluted privacy statements that nobody ever reads, because we just download an app and click yes, and we're not aware that our data is collected and sold. And for me, there are real concerns around this, and his book is a real eye-opener. So anyone who wants to look at data privacy and some of the challenges we are facing, is a highly recommended book.
What's the name of the book again?
It's called Industry Unbound: The
Industry
Inside
Unbound.
Story of Privacy, Data, and Corporate Power.
Yeah, this idea of transparency is a big one, not just in the data collection process, but in the way models are being built. There's a lot, of course, around what's commonly known as XAI. I don't, if the community here doesn't know this term, it's something to research. It stands for explainable AI. So, what is the data that makes it into your business, algorithms and your models, and how did you get to a particular decisions? Being able to trace that. Some industries, of course, are required to disclose that, and so I think we will see more and more regulation in this, primarily just because privacy laws, it's absolutely necessary. But secondly, as models and algorithms become more and more complex, we need to be able to audit and trace back, how we got to a particular decision, a particular score, and a particular workflow. And so I think there's a lot here that needs to be developed. That's just in the infancy at the moment. Explainable AI is a very, very hot term right now. Gartner came out with their hype cycle of the emerging technologies in 2021, and I think it's one of the top topics. There's a few areas that people focus on these days: XAI, data ops, and data mesh and data fabric are certainly hot topics. I think they kind of revolve around the same issue, which is, where is my data? What do I know about my data, and what's being done to that data? And how can I audit, operationalize it in the way that there's logic behind it, and I can audit the whole process. So certainly a lot going on in this space.
Yeah, and we are far, far, far away from having that transparency and that control, I think.
That's right. Now,
Um,
what else has been going on in your month here? Are you starting to plan to travel and envision going to events in person?
a few little things. I still prefer to not go anywhere if I can. For me, going to an event has to have some real added value. So, for example, if there was an event and I know that 10 people I haven't seen for a very long time would be there, and there's an opportunity to meet them in person and go out for a nice dinner, maybe that would persuade me. In terms of, I because nowadays most events are hybrid anyway. So if I
Very good
wanted
with
to
both.
go to an event to learn from it, I would go. But to be honest, I very rarely find this, that I go to an event and find something completely new, because hopefully things will have worked their way towards me before then if they're groundbreaking in our space. So and if people want me to speak in person, I still don't really accept that at this point in time, because it just, I feel I'm so much more productive. I can, if I had a request recently to go to Korea, and that was a great opportunity, but I'm not interested because I lose so many days out of my calendar, and it's not just not worth my time anymore, which is interesting. How about you?
Yes, I was going to be near you in London uh, this past, I think it was this past week, the Big Data London event.
Mm,
It's the UK's largest data event. It was being hosted, I think, in London, but
mm,
I'm still not traveling for events. I think for many reasons. Of course, the first one is safety. The ability to just go and meet with people is not certain at the moment. And also, I agree with you, which is, the ability to be efficient. um, I think we're now been able to work fairly efficiently at delivering messages of higher quality, actually, by delivering them online.
mm.
And certainly for, an hour meeting, traveling for 15 hours, it seems now has become really kind of a little outrageous. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, we're not traveling. I am meeting customers now. I'm pretty excited about that, but most of the meetings are outside with very few people, and keeping our distances. I was recently traveling to meet a chief data officer, and it was outside with distances and so forth. But it was great to be able to exchange ideas kind of in the same space. So I do miss that. But I think for large scale events, I think we're going to have to wait a little bit before we can do that.
Yeah, no, I think for events it's really important to think, why would they want to do it in person? Because firstly, it's inconvenient. As you say, you need to travel, then it's really bad for the environment, gives you a big carbon footprint. And then you cram yourself into an auditorium with 1,000 other people to watch someone, when I can do this very comfortably from my desk whenever I want to. I don't need to be there at a specific time. So I think that is a real challenge for event organizers and people that make a living out of real events, to really rethink them and reimagining them, make them value added. And especially as we're building this metaverse now, the digital experience will become better than the physical real world experience that we can have.
I agree. So now I'm moving on to another topic, which is the momentum in the industry. This past week, I'll be writing about this in the next few days, about the big data landscape, the number of startups that have been born over the last year in this space of data, AI, and analytics. I don't know if you had the opportunity to take a look at it, but Matt Turk, who is a venture capitalist, every year studies the industry and looks at how many companies are created, the categories they're in, and his analysis just came out. I think this past week. Like I said, I'll write about it, so it creates a filter. But what's interesting, there are a few kind of conclusions from his research. One is he started doing this analysis in uh, 2012, so almost 9 years ago. I think this is the eighth edition. The first one was pretty easy to understand because there were a few boxes, a few companies. Now it's just exploded into a large number of organizations. And the question is, why is that happening? One of the main reasons is because the infrastructure, how we store data at scale in a secure manner, has now globally been fixed. Now you can easily, company of any size can easily store data securely at a very affordable cost. And so what that's creating is essentially a foundation for organizations that do AI, that do artificial intelligence and applications, to now take advantage of this infrastructure and go out and innovate. So what he's noticing is there is a flurry of organizations, small companies, that are able to now go to market and start as a business for a specific use case in an industry and so forth, because they're taking advantage of the fact that infrastructure is no longer a barrier to innovation. What do you see in new world? Are you finding a lot more companies that you're talking to that are innovating? And if so, what trends are you seeing? What are the big problems that are being solved?
Yeah, so for me, what has happened over the last 2 years is that digital transformation has been fast tracked. So any company that didn't think they could operate virtually and they could rely on cloud infrastructure for their data storage and their applications had to rethink this really quickly. So now we have most organizations on the cloud, which then means the data is there to be analyzed. So what I see now is that beyond the traditional players in the big data and AI space, we are now seeing a lot of niche players looking at very niche applications of data and AI, be this in customer services. I was talking to someone that has developed a new platform to develop new products. We see this in anything. So this is definitely something I'm seeing, that this field is becoming more complex as, I guess, as data science and AI becomes more democratized. Because I think the other part of this story is that we have all of this data now stored nicely in our clouds and data lakes, so we can use it. The other thing is that we've made huge advances in this whole no code environment. So we can now start using machine learning and AI without having to learn Python. If we look at some of the innovation, GPT-3 is a great example. The program developed by OpenAI that simply allows you to write a machine learning algorithm by simply talking to it, saying, I want you to create an app with these abilities, and then the AI will understand what you're saying and it will program it for you. So that for me is going to really democratize it, and which I think this will make this landscape even more crazy, and hopefully in the future much less, there will be fewer massive big players that control everything. We have lots of little ones, and hopefully we'll get to a point where anyone who wants to use AI can do this, even without necessarily the data science and machine learning capabilities and skills that are required today.
That's interesting, coupling the trend of infrastructure being just universally available and now low code, no code, enabling more people to build more applications. I didn't think about that second trend, but I could see how that would be creating a flurry of innovation, hopefully for the best for everyone here. But I do think it's becoming more and more confusing for the average CIO
Oh,
to understand, what am I supposed to bet on? What's going to be here to last and what's going to be here for maybe a few months or maybe a few years, and then how do I make my bets? And so the the strategy for the average CIO on how do I organize myself, I think, is becoming more and more challenging every day. Are you getting a lot of questions and consulting with organizations, like where do I start? You talked about a framework earlier here, but I'm just thinking traditional organization wanting to accelerate and now is being hit every day by yet another data and AI startup that's starting. And just like Mike is saying here in the comments, these organizations are getting to acceleration themselves very quickly. So they're unicorns. They are appear to be driving an important shift or trend in the industry. And so for someone that makes tech decisions, tech buying decisions, how do they parse to that?
I agree, and I see this every single day when I talk to companies, and um, to be honest, I'm glad I'm not a CIO. They are finding it very difficult, because it is not only that we're seeing all of these new vendors coming up and these new innovations coming out, but we're seeing much faster innovation cycles. So even among the really big organizations, the rate of innovation is changing so rapidly. And this is actually something that I predict is going to happen over the next 10, 15 years that we will see this continuous acceleration of new innovations. And if you think about some of the exciting things that are on the horizon, things like DNA data storage, the fact that we can now write and retrieve data on a strand of DNA, and the and Harvard researchers have successfully done that. And if we can really operationalize this, this would mean we can store the entire amount of the data that we have in the world on a teaspoon of DNA. So these advances will be massive if we then couple this with quantum computing that will give us computing power that is a trillion times more powerful than what we have today. If we then couple this with 5 or even 6G connectivity in the future, all of this will just blow the things we can do today completely out of the water. And this will get faster and faster and faster and will be more difficult for organizations to keep up. So what they need to do is they need to organize themselves very differently. So in the past, if we go back 20 years, 10 years ago, companies could have these huge IT investments. They can platform onto things like SAP and have their data warehouses and have them all connected and working and thinking, actually, I'm okay now for the next 5 to 10 years. This won't be the case in the future. And so what organizations need to do is they need to be much more agile. They need to be almost self-destructive in a certain way. And this is actually going against of how IT organizations have functioned in the past, that they've always tried to map out the future very safely and then build that. Nowadays is much more trial error, much more agile, finding technology that works, moving fast, and then replacing it.
Self-destructive. So that's interesting because you're talking both about a change in paradigm in the technology itself, but also a change in paradigm in how people organize themselves and the type of people that they probably want to hire or the type of functions they want to build in order to enable themselves to be more agile. This past month, a big trend that people have been talking about is the idea of data operations, data observability, and the role of the data engineer. I published a lot of resources on that because lots of customers are asking, hey, what am I supposed to hire for? What does a data engineer do? And it turns out it's one of the professions that's going to develop itself, the most. I think in the past we thought about the data scientist, of course, but now increasingly it's the data engineer who, understands the data environment, provides the tool set and the frameworks for folks to build these applications. Like you said, sometimes might be applications that are built by technical folks, but many times it's applications that are built through low code, no code frameworks. And this idea of data ops is that now you're taking these, disparate processes and you're kind of operationalizing them in the way that, one, you understand how they're run repeatedly, but you also are creating frameworks where you can build agility into your model. So if you're looking at that and you're listening to us as a tech leader, data observability and data operations, data engineering are trends to look at and certainly to hire for as you're preparing yourself to kind of build a model that's modern and agile, like what Bernard is describing here.
Absolutely, 100%. What other exciting things have you come across or done or seen over the last month?
Well, this summer has been very busy for me. First of all, every summer I typically go to France, so I didn't travel, and so did a lot of work and connected with a lot of people online. One of the trends that I think could be interesting for people here to discuss and certainly to study up is this idea of the digital twin. So we
Hmm.
talked about the business transformation here, and we talked about the evolution of frameworks and the ability to kind of project yourself into a digital world. We started with the glasses, right? By the way, the other thing I didn't talk about earlier is that this is actually the charger for the glasses, which is pretty cool. But the idea of like projecting a digital image of your environment is becoming more and more popular. It's becoming cheaper as well for organizations to do that. Um, and we saw a lot of resources, a lot of articles published on what is a digital twin. So, um, what I think is interesting is that there are many ways to think about digital twin. So the most basic definition, of course, is it's a replica of a physical situation. So and it's not a new concept, by the way. This is something that NASA invented in the 60s when they created a replica of Apollo 13. So, the idea of creating a replica of a physical environment into a digital world is not new. What is new, though, is what's being done about the digital twin and how it's now evolving from this world where you just have a descriptive twin, where it's just live, editable, it's a digital version of a physical asset, to now something that's informative, where now you're bringing a bit of data to it, and now the twin might be richer than the actual version of the physical um, thing it's replicating. And then you get to the next stage where now you have additive data, you have additive information. Now you can start predict, so you can now advance your digital extension of the physical asset into what it could be. And then you can move to the next stage of what we call comprehensive digital twins, which now it starts simulating scenarios, and it starts considering what if questions, all the way to really what we think in the industry is going to happen fairly soon, is this autonomous digital twin that now is really where the twin's able to learn, it's able to act on behalf of the users, to think about here an augmented intelligent version of what the real thing could be. I think in manufacturing particularly, customers have been talking a lot about it, but I think we now start seeing that appear in all industries. So I think there's a whole body of work that CIOs are going to turn to folks like you, Bernard, on, hey, what's my digital twin strategy here, and where am I in comparison to other folks in my industry? We've thought about it in manufacturing, but what about healthcare? Um, and what about all these other industries where this concept of an intelligent, augmented digital twin could really advance my agenda in making better decisions? Do you see much about that yourself?
Yeah, a huge explosion in this whole space of digital twins. If you think about this, as you say, we've had this for a very long time. I 15 years ago or 20 years ago, I worked with the atomic weapons establishment, the people that build and maintain the nuclear weapons for the UK, and they relied on digital twins already then really heavily, because there was an international treaty that you can't just test nuclear weapons, and therefore they relied on digital versions to test things out, and they had amazing supercomputers and models that would allow them to build new weapons and test them digitally. And then an industry that I've always been close to is Formula One. Just next to where I live, we have the Red Bull racing team. I live close to the Silverstone circuit here in the UK, and they have used digital twins, and they've actually built this into their entire competitive model, because they basically the ruling body of the Formula One limit how much track time cars and teams get to test their cars on the actual track. So they had to rely on digital twins. They built digital wind tunnels and tested new features and new designs and things. And so nowadays everything is done digitally. It is then 3D printed, so it's already being used. And I was talking to an architect firm recently, and what they're doing is they're taking this a step further. So when they are building these billion-dollar skyscrapers in New York City and Dubai, before they build them, they will create a digital twin of those. And this is where the digital twin then enters what I described earlier as the metaverse, where you then put virtual reality goggles on, and you can actually walk into this building, and you can use artificial intelligence to simulate the sunset and sundown, and you can see what it will actually look like in the real world before you even lay the first brick to build anything. And that for me is super exciting. This I one organization that I've worked with for a long time is Wimbledon, the guys that run the tennis tournament. And again, we had an interesting session the other day where we talked about how could they exploit digital twins, and how could we were talking about bringing concerts into video games like Fortnite. We're thinking, why can't we bring Wimbledon into Fortnite and give people playing there a Wimbledon experience? Because I absolutely love Wimbledon. I'm such a big fan of that competition. For me, it's the best tennis tournament in the world. There's something magic about it, and when you've seen it live, it's just incredible how beautiful the grounds are. It just is, everything is just magic. And you can replicate some of this magic digitally and open it up to a completely new audience. So for me, digital twins is something that will become relevant to every single organization. And then we have digital twins on a completely different level as well. One of the things that I am working on at the moment is creating a digital twin of myself, or at least a digital version of me. So we have used AI, a generative adversarial network, to create a version of me, and we've used another AI to train my voice. And this is something people will see soon on my YouTube channel as well, is that there will be a digital version of me giving talks and presentations. And the other area that I think I wrote about this month was that ABBA just released a new album, and I am a bit of an ABBA fan. But they have also announced a new concert. So they're building a venue in London, where they will perform, but it will not be them, it will be a digital version of them. So they have spent some time in a film studio creating digital avatars of themselves, a bit like what we do in movies. And then they've used artificial intelligence to actually make them younger. So they captured their movements and everything in real time now as old people, and then they made them younger, and those younger versions of themselves will now perform these virtual concerts, or these actual concerts, but they will perform as avatars, which for me is, they are all part of the same story that we started to talk about, the merging of the digital and the real world. And it will be interesting to see how this works, because you go there as have a real experience. You can book dance booths, so you can go in there and have a proper party, but those people won't actually be there. Will be their digital avatar. So again, merging the real world experience with the digital one.
We seem to just go full circle with what we started here, where the merging of the physical and the digital. But what's interesting about what you're saying here is that we initially thought about the digital twin as this idea of like, let's remove risk and let's replicate and so forth, and it quickly turned into, we could do that, but we could also now create a better version of the reality, not just augment our experience with reality, but also augment what we can be in that reality. The concert of ABBA, I think, is a great example of that. So I definitely think this is a trend that's going to be talked about a lot, and it's going to be available to many of us because of technology like this that is making possible for us to have completely different experiences personally, but also appear different, augmented, better, younger, maybe smarter to other people. I don't know that I can agree with you on Wimbledon because I'm French. So for me, the French Open is the best tennis tournament on earth. But of course, I'm a little biased on that. I know we have just a few minutes left. I want to ask you about the piece that you published this past week on the 5 biggest technology trends in 2022. It's kind of interesting. We're not even in December yet, but you've already thought about next year. So what went into that? I mean, we talked about some of the trends you wrote about, but I'm just curious if you want to touch on a few.
Yeah, I, this is now the time of the year, and you have to get in there early. So I always started to write my trend pieces in October, and I have probably 10 pieces lined up. I've got a new article coming out in Forbes on Monday on the trends in data science. I've just published the key trends in artificial intelligence, then the key tech trends. I've got the key business trends coming up. So there's a lot more stuff coming out. I don't really want to repeat what's in the article because there's also a video that people can watch. But for me, some of the I think we touched on so many of the key trends here. For me, artificial intelligence is still a major trend, and what we'll see is AI everywhere in everything, especially driven by cloud and no code. This is for me a hugely important trend. This whole idea of the metaverse and creating this digital world where digital twins fall in. I think they're all part of this. So there's so many exciting things happening, and anyone who wants to go into detail, there's a video on my YouTube channel that outlines all five of them.
Is there one trend though that you think people are not thinking about? Maybe the unexpected trend that
It's probably the one we talked about the most today, is the metaverse.
yeah.
If um that I think there are lots of companies that think this is way out there. This is not for me. I don't need to think about this. And I now talk to so many organizations, and when we explore this idea of what the metaverse will mean in the future, light bulbs go up very quickly and they say, "Oh my God, I didn't even think about this." And for me, is how you reach customers in the future. So as people spend more and more time in the digital universe, how will you reach those customers? And we will create digital versions of the real world. So we have replicas, whether it be Wimbledon or a simple billboard advertisement that we can personalize to people. So the digital world gives us so many more opportunities to reach customers in a completely different way. And so be the sponsorship, be it advertising at the very basic level, but there are so many opportunities for organizations to create digital products and services. So there's a company I was speaking to recently that creates digital clothing. And if you think how much money kids already spend on Fortnite skins, and because this is what used to be the car in the past for kids, now is what their avatar looks like and what they're wearing in their video games. And so this will become increasingly important. What what will your avatar look like? Has it got cool clothes and cool fashion? And this is again really important for brands to be aware of this and be into all of this. And I think another really important trend is this whole idea of personalization and automate automate being able to automate everything. So um, I was working with L'Oreal recently, and what they are now doing is they are putting almost micro factories into retail shops. So you can go in there. There is this weird little booth that will analyze your skin, and then you can completely customize your face cream. And this is all created and made on site in this little machine. And this is super exciting for me. This whole idea of really rethinking your supply chain, rethinking how you make and distribute products, especially with the environment and sustainability in mind as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that is a trend that is not, I think, estimated to its true value. This idea of going from physical to digital and digital back to physical has implications, I think, of course, to retail. I was watching a French show recently where, the person was wearing clothes of a certain color and a certain type, and all of a sudden they changed to different color, different type, and so forth, and it was seamless. They could see themselves, we could see them, but also I think it's applicable in industries that are not consumer industries. I think that's probably where CIOs need to be looking at now, is that the technologies that they've seen and they've thought were maybe cornered to a consumer industry or maybe to manufacturing industry now are actually quickly transferring almost invisibly to their industry. And if they don't pay attention to it early enough, they're going to miss the trend. And so this concept of digital twin, I think, is important. Before we close, I think just for Mike, because he's been asking for it, I want to do a screenshot of us wearing these glasses. He's been calling us the blue glasses twins. And so before we close this session, I
Ha-
want to make sure that I capture that
Have
I
you got the
memorize
blue
this.
ones as well?
I got blue ones, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Which
me
one
too.
you got blue as well as
Yeah.
well? All right, give me a good smile. All right, photo taken, and Mike, we will publish that for you on LinkedIn.
Very good. Yeah, I can't believe this hour is gone already. There's always so much to talk about.
As always, yeah, you and I can talk forever.
Absolutely, and it's so exciting. There's so much happening, and if this acceleration of innovation is going to happen, we need to do these every week, probably at some point.
We might need to do that, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it was great to talk to you, Bernard, and always great to see the community react to this. And let us know, what you want to talk about throughout the month. I guess we'll see each other next month again. I don't know what the date is. Do you already know when we're talking
No,
next?
we've got it in the calendar. We will let people know on my social channels and your social channels. Um, There was one question by Ali. Would it be possible to get this video after it finishes on the live? Yes, you can always see them on my YouTube channel, and you can also see them on my LinkedIn profile. It's a bit cryptic to find it. If you have to go to my content and then to posts, and this is where you can find them. But the easiest way is to find them on my YouTube channel. Very good. As always, have a fantastic weekend. Good to see you, Bruno,
Good
and
to see
I
you.
will speak to you soon.
All righty.
Okay, bye
Bye
bye.
bye.